Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Thanksgiving week edition of the Cover Four podcast. So we do this the day before Thanksgiving, as Randy Gibson and I have got to talk about a bunch of stuff. And first things first, University of Tulsa makes a change at head coach on Sunday afternoon. Justin Moore, the new AD up there, gave Kevin Wilson his marching orders, and a young guy who's their wide receivers coach, Ryan Switzer, is going to be the interim coach for the game on Saturday, the final home game and the final game of the season for the Golden Hurricane as they take on Florida Atlantic at 2:30 at Skelly Stadium. This was not too big of a surprise. I think this has been brewing for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So they dropped the hammer before the final ball game, and so we'll see what happens. They want to get the guys out a winner, which I totally agree with them. They've played hard, but they've just, after last week's game where they just got absolutely blown out by South Florida, that proved to be the breaking point.
Yeah, it was too bad. I really wanted to see him do a good job at Tulsa. And I kind of felt like he was going in the right direction, and then things kind of fell apart.
Yeah, they did. They really did. And they played three quarterbacks. That's never a good sign. You've seen that.
Seen it everywhere. Yep, not good. Not good. I'm sorry to see that happen. I hope he lands somewhere good.
Yeah. Very possibly back at OU, possibly.
They're looking for an offensive coordinator.
Yep,
Get some help on the offensive staff. And when he was offensive coordinator before with Stoops, they did a good job.
Yep. That's something that, and Brent knows that because he was on the staff.
So yep.
That's very possible.
Then, so
very
who
possible.
knows? They're kind of keeping mum about who they're going to bring in. Lots of talk, but Brent, he keeps things pretty close to the chest. So
yeah, he does. The other thing was that the Sequoyah Indians football team saw their season end in the first round. They lost 36-13 to Kiefer in the first round of the state football playoffs. They wound up 5-6 on the season. So Tahlequah, the lone team in Cherokee County with a winning record, but they were the team with the winning record, but didn't make the playoffs because they lost to Collinsville, and that proved to be the tiebreaker. So football's over with. Basketball and wrestling about ready to get started after the holidays. So we're done with that. But one thing I will touch on, Bill Haston just absolutely ripped the OSSAA in Monday's paper up at the Tulsa World, and had every right to rip them. The 6A1 semifinals, with game one played at 1 o'clock between Owasso and Jinx. And then the 7 o'clock game is Bixby and Edmond Memorial. Now, Edmond Memorial has a little Tahlequah twist to it because Jeff Reeser, his oldest daughter, Amanda Friel, married to Jordan Friel, who played baseball here at NSU. Their oldest son, Beckett, is a sophomore at Edmond Memorial.
Oh, really?
And I would rather see Beckett and Camden in Tahlequah wearing orange and white than wearing the maroon of Edmond Memorial. And I'm afraid that 7 o'clock game they're going to get a taste of what it is like on the eastern side of the state because they're
Yeah,
playing the kingpin of 6A1, and that's Bigsby.
Bigsby.
But here's the thing: they're playing the game at Lanto Field in Claremore, both games, and it only seats 6,000. So why in the world are you playing in Claremore when you had Union Tuttle and Memorial Stadium at Tiger Field in Broken Arrow available?
That
Answer
doesn't
that question.
that doesn't make any sense at all
Yeah.
to me.
And Bill just absolutely ripped them a new one in the paper Monday about that, about the sites, and had every right to.
I can
I
see
don't
why.
know if it was because Broken Arrow and Union did not want to host it. That's very, very possible. So I don't know. Uh, the best game is going to be at Wagner Friday night, and it's going to be Class A Division One. It's going to be Vian and Colcord. That's going to be a dandy in Class A, and they'll have a house full at Dale Condit
Hmm.
Stadium over there in Wagner.
I'm
So
sure they will.
yeah, and I can tell you right now, the only people that are going to be in those two towns are the police department and the guys having to man the fire station.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep,
Everybody else is going to be gone.
yep, that's right.
Yeah,
Well,
it reminds me
excuse
of
me.
the movie Friday Night Lights when
Exactly.
Odessa closed down, gone to the game,
Mm-hmm.
back in the 90s.
Exactly.
And it was, and I lived in Texas in that time. Odessa was like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because in Texas, uh, well, in the lower classes, they play everything on a neutral field.
Right.
Whereas in 6A, Division One, Division Two down there, they do play the first round uh, at home, and then they go to neutral sites after that.
Yeah.
And then they designate who the home team is, and they take care of all the paperwork that has to go into the UIL. So,
Yeah.
um, but anyway, excuse me. Well,
Oh,
you had the pleasure of sitting in the seventh deck
yeah,
of Owen Field
I
and
did.
got to see OU do something that you and I didn't think was going to happen, and that's beat Alabama like a drum.
What I can say is roll Sooners.
Yeah,
Good grief. That shocked me
everybody.
and the other 80,000 plus people sitting in that stadium that night.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, watching the Oklahoma offense throughout the season,
Mm-hmm.
and it just seemed like nothing could go their way. Starting out, top five receivers out, top running back out, three of the offensive linemen out. And it just seemed like the injury bug just never
Never quit.
stopped. No. And you'd think you'd get somebody back, and then next week they'd be out again. And,
Yeah.
you know, all of a sudden they pull a running back from the scout team,
Hmm.
who Xavier Robinson,
Okay.
scout team kid, pulled him out, and he started playing. He really kind of started hearing his name at the Missouri game,
Mm-hmm.
right before the bye week. And it's like, whoa, where did this kid come from? Well, when I got to digging and found out the kid was on the scout team, redshirted, and he they were trying to save his red shirt, but he said, if I can help the team, they were down to where Sooners weren't even going to a bowl,
Right.
and they were
Now
just.
they are.
Yeah, and he was like, if I can at least help my team get through this season and get to a bowl game, I'll burn my red shirt. And
Mm-hmm.
they pulled him, And I'll tell you how good this kid is. OU star on defense, Danny Stutzman, the linebacker,
Mm-hmm.
he actually said, I'm kind of sad to see Xavier go to the team in a way because he was so good to practice against on the
Mm-hmm.
scout team for the defense. You
And help
know,
them.
he really helped them throughout the year,
Mm-hmm.
but he took complete control of the running game
Mm-hmm.
against the Tide. Okay, now you've watched the Sooner offense with Riley. They would score so fast, the defense, which wasn't very good during those years anyway,
Right.
they never got a chance to rest.
Right.
Jim, we were sitting there in shock. When OU took possession of the ball after holding Bama in the fourth quarter with over 6 minutes left in the game, OU never gave the ball back to Bama after that
They drained the clock. Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
entire 6 minutes. We were looking up at the scoreboard, and all of a sudden there was like 4 minutes left in the second quarter. It was almost halftime. We were like, where has this game gone?
Yeah.
Totally ball control on the ground, just
Yeah.
total. Um, Alabama's quarterback had a rough night.
Yeah. They came with
Ooh,
nothing but straight heat.
yeah,
And he hadn't he didn't have time to breathe.
no, no, not at all. He couldn't throw.
Yeah.
The receivers were covered. The pass rush was so strong. He had no time to throw. Alabama had to run. They had no running game going for him at all.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterback, um, throughout the season, it seemed to really help the Bama running game. They had him
They balled
contained.
him up too. Yeah.
No
They
way. He
had
wasn't
like
going anywhere.
they
The
had like
first,
70 yards rushing.
the tone of the game got set on Alabama's first possession. They opted for the second half kickoff. Bama did. So OU had the ball first. Um, Bama got the ball back, and very first play from scrimmage for Bama, quarterback tried to run
And he
up the
got stuffed.
middle, got stuffed at the line of scrimmage by Stutzman. That set the tone for the entire night.
Yeah.
That was it. We were totally shocked. Earlier in the day, we had kind of made. I will kind of throw this out at you. Early in the day, we'd kind of made me and a couple of the guys up in the booth. We were kind of laughing at the BYU or the Arizona State kids who stormed the field with 1 second left on the clock,
Right.
and they had to clear that field. Which we'll get into that game in a minute.
Yeah.
But we were kind of laughing, going, "The stupid Arizona State kids, they didn't see there was a second left on the clock." Well, danged if
That's
the OU kids didn't do it with 28 seconds left on the clock. Well,
well,
they
here's the thing. The Arizona State game, the clock did hit zero.
it did,
And
it did.
and Kevin Marr, who was the referee in that game, they looked at the reviewed it and still had 1 second up on the
Yeah.
clock. But that's neither here nor there. But the storming of the field for OU that didn't
I,
cost them 100,000. That cost them 200.
200,000 because of the delay of the game with 28 seconds left, and then the storming of the field after the game. But that's another 200,000 to Bama when the SEC checks are cut at the end of the year.
That's 550,000 extra.
But
Bama,
I
because it's the third time this year that that's happened. 250 at Tennessee at Neyland Stadium, and then 100,000 at First Bank Stadium in Nashville
mhm,
when the Commodores beat them. And who
right.
thought that the Doors are going to a bowl game? My
Yeah.
Hogs are going to a bowl game. Uh, and we'll touch on Arkansas here in a little bit.
Uh,
But yeah, that was
go,
wild. And the other thing is, uh, Herbie was there, him and
yes.
Fowler.
Mhm.
So you got to see from afar Peter Herbstreit.
Peter, got to see my first glimpse of Peter. I'd seen Ben earlier in the year at the Tennessee game.
Yep, before he
And,
passed away.
yep.
Yeah.
And then you had the pleasure to see Peter as well. And he looked
And
just as
the
home down
he,
there as Ben, but not quite as relaxed. He was a little bit more hyper than Ben.
well, he some of the fans got to meet him. In fact, they opened the gate uh, there on the sideline before the game, and he came up to the first row right there at the gate, and the people got to pet him and got
Yeah.
his picture and everything. So
And he, of course,
he's getting used to it mainly because he's a whole lot younger than Ben was. Ben was 10.
yeah, he got the royal treatment from the Sooner Athletic Department. I'll tell you, um, Kirk got given a uh, really pretty framed drawing
Yes,
of
I saw that.
Ben. Did you see that
Yes.
of Ben with the
Yes.
halo and the Sooner collar on?
Hmm.
Um, Peter got given, of course, just like Ben, the all access
All access
pass,
pass. Yes.
which is great. And they really made to feel welcome. A lot of people have been kind of harping about that on some of the sports boards, but I think it's just another fun thing of college football that's
It
great.
is.
I love it.
Well,
I absolutely love it.
it's companionship for Kirk. And
Yeah,
he
it is.
explained that.
Yeah,
You
sure.
look in the, on the uh, his board that, it was companionship for him. Excuse me. As he, you get in these hotel rooms and on the private jets that wheels up supplies for ESPN to take him and Fowler to the ball games, and even Amazon because he does the Thursday night games with
Mhm.
Al Michaels.
Right.
So he does a lot of traveling
Yeah.
on those private jets. So
A lot of Sooners fans over the years, they've kind of on Kirk and Lee both because Lee always Sooner fans always think Lee picks against them, but that's not true.
no,
But that's the
he's
way
just
some of the fan base feels, and
yep,
that's fine. But I love it. I think it's great, and the athletic department recognizes they know what they're doing. And when Herb Street and whether it was Ben or now Peter comes, they roll out the red carpet
yes, yep,
for them.
sure do.
They really do. Love it. It's fantastic. It was a great game. It was fun. The I don't know if you knew this, Jim. The goalpost after they were torn down in 2000 after the Nebraska game, when they had that red October when they beat
Yes,
Texas,
yes,
Kansas State,
yep,
and Nebraska in a row, and went on to win the national championship. After that game, the goalpost came down, and they put the goalpost on hinges after that. I don't know if you knew
yes,
that.
yeah. They do the same thing that Arkansas does.
Yes, and so
Arkansas has the
they can lower them immediately.
same ones, and they lowered them after the Texas game a couple of years ago, and also after the Tennessee game.
Hmm.
So they are prepared
Yeah,
to get the goalpost down uh, and have them on the field. That way
yeah, they don't get
they don't
broken.
break them. In fact, uh, there's the goalpost at Vaught Hemingway, which is Ole Miss, uh, after they beat who in the heck was it here a couple of weeks ago? They tore the goalpost down, and there's a tight end for them, Caleb Priestmore. Priestmore. His wife does a Instagram, and they've got two kids. One's 3. His name's Mac, and then they just had a little girl uh, here in the last 6 months. But Mac is like 3, and they've got on her Instagram page, uh, they got somebody being Mac's voice, and it's really cute. And what's really going to be cute is to look at it after Saturday because of
Hmm.
the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State. it's their final home game. So he will get, the commemorative senior ball. And I'm just wondering if he doesn't get it presented to him, that Lane gives it to Mac to,
Could be.
uh, when they introduce him uh, as one of the seniors playing his final game. He wears
Mhm.
number 86. He's a tight end and was MVP in the bowl game last year. So
Oh,
so
really?
he's not a bad player. He's been hurt uh, in he missed a game. In fact, he missed the Arkansas game. Didn't play. In fact, I don't even know if he made the trip or not.
Hmm.
So, but anyway, final game of the season for Oklahoma State, and it's a Friday game against Coach Prime, who's can't be happy with the way they played against KU.
Oh my gosh, no, boy, you talk about just another total shock. Big 12 is just in a scramble of mess right now.
Well, we're going to go over that here in just a sec. But
Yeah, total.
but KU has woke up, and if they win Saturday,
Hmm.
they go to a bowl game because they get 6-6.
Yeah,
And
which nobody thought they would get there at the beginning of the year either.
no, and they played terrible first half of the season, but now
Oh yeah,
they've gotten everybody well, and they're now looking at possibly going bowling.
yeah.
So, but the scramble, looking at this, looking at the Big 12 site, uh, if it winds up two-team tie, those two teams go to Dallas, go to Arlington.
Yeah.
If it's a three-team tie, if Colorado loses to Oklahoma State, it's Arizona State and Iowa State in the championship game. If Arizona State loses to Arizona, then it's Iowa State and BYU. If it's a Iowa State loss, it's a rematch between Arizona State and BYU, this time at Jerry's World. Then you get into the complicated mess. A BYU loss, a Texas Tech win, a Baylor win, and a Cincinnati win, and it's Colorado and Iowa State. If BYU loses, Texas Tech wins, Baylor loses, and Cincinnati loses, it's Colorado and Arizona State. A BYU loss and a West Virginia win, and it's Arizona State and Iowa State. Then four-team tie, it would be Arizona State and Iowa State. So it is, like I say, a big fat mess, unlike the SEC championship game, where Georgia's in,
Georgia's in.
and then winner take all at Kyle Field Saturday night.
Oh yeah, I want to talk about that one when we get there.
Texas and Texas A&M, the return of the rivalry,
Oh man,
and Bonfire is probably tonight.
probably.
I don't know.
I don't know. I would it be tonight or would it be Friday?
I don't think they do it the day before. I think they do it on Wednesday.
Wednesday. I don't
Uh,
know. I will
but
tell you this. Okay, let me talk about that for just a second.
mm-hmm,
I am so excited to watch that Texas A&M game.
I am
I,
too.
I have waited just like everybody else for over a decade to see these two teams play again. And
Yes.
to think that the first rattle out of the box, it is for the winner gets to go play Georgia in the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
It's going to be a huge game, number 3 against number 15.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to say this. They say everything's bigger in Texas.
Yeah.
That is the same with the price of this ticket. Have you seen what
It's way
they're
up
going
there.
for?
It's way up there.
Average ticket price for this game, $1,072.
Yeah. I can believe that.
That's according to TickPick
Mm-hmm.
on the online marketplace for college
Yeah.
football tickets. TickPick, one thousand
Man.
seventy-two dollars a seat. This game is going to be huge. It's got SEC championship riding on it. It's got playoff implications riding on it. It's got possible national championship implications riding on it. And first one in over a decade. I have waited for this weekend to watch this game for a long, long time.
Well, hate to bust everybody's bubble on it, but looking at right here, uh, Robertson County, where A&M's at, is in a burn ban.
Hmm.
So, Stack Site's going to be open to visitors from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the 29th. Walk around the site, take photos, tell old Army stories, get motivated for uh, that. Bonfire has zero tolerance, no alcohol, including burn. Anyone found with alcohol will be removed. So
No
they
bonfire.
may not be able to light it. They might be able to erect it,
Hmm.
which
They will.
they'll erect the thing. The topping off ceremony might be tonight.
I could see that.
And do you know what the topping off is?
Been a long time.
It is what they call a TUT room, meaning an outhouse.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they call it TU, but at Oklahoma we called it UT, not TU. TU was Tulsa.
Right. And I'd have to tell that to the new AD at Tulsa, say, hey, you know, they call it TU here, University of Tulsa, which is TU, but not University of Texas.
Right.
So, because he came from A&M,
Yeah, that's right. He
he
did.
was he was
Uh,
assistant AD down there.
you know, and talking about bonfire, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. If I'm not mistaken, it's the 25th anniversary of when those kids were killed and when the bonfire
It
collapsed.
was. I just saw that just a second ago. It is, I think, sooner than that. Let me look.
I lived in
On
Dallas at the
yeah,
time, and it
yeah.
was a big
You're
deal.
right. It was 99.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was 25 years ago, and injured 20, killed 7 or 13. I can't
It
remember now.
13, I think.
I think it
And
killed 13 and injured 20.
yeah, and it happened at 2:42 a.m.
Hmm.
November 18th.
Yep,
That's when
it
that
did.
thing occurred. Uh, they showed on YouTube, the Texas band, the Longhorn band was on the field there at Kyle Field and did uh, just like LSU's band for 9/11. Uh, they played Amazing Grace
Mhm.
uh, in honor of them. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I thought that was pretty classy of
yes,
the UT band. Of course,
yes,
they're a big rival of the Pride, but
yes.
we make fun of them and they make fun of us. But
Oh
that
yeah,
was a
oh
that
yeah.
was a class act.
The that one I'd have to ask Chris Abel's son and brother-in-law. Thomas Bexley.
Yeah.
Thomas, trumpet player in the Longhorn band. And I don't
Mhm.
know if he was in the band at that time or when he played for him.
Don't know.
I'm not sure either. I had to.
I don't know
Uh,
if you knew this, Jim. I kind of lean toward A&M a lot. I had a
yeah,
chance to go there and get my doctorate
yes,
after I
I
got my
remember that.
master's at Oklahoma, and almost went. Had I not gotten the job in Oklahoma City, I was headed to Bryan College Station to get a doctorate at A&M, and
Yeah, I've
I
got
kind
a
of I kind of lean toward them when it comes to the rivalry.
yeah my cousin Bob Baker, his son Eric, he is an engineer. He was at OU, and he is on the uh, staff down there at A&M in the
Mhm.
engineering department. So yeah. Well, what about my Hogs? They beat Louisiana Tech, got to 6-5, and uh, Sam Pittman got the bowling bag out, pulled Larry
Yeah,
out, and the Razorbacks are going bowling for the third time in 4 years.
that's fantastic. So
Yep,
glad they're back on track.
yep. Here's an interesting fact about the uh, borderline rivalry coming up Saturday at uh, a haunted place for OU people and also for Arkansas for Rowe Field in Columbia.
Oh, yeah.
They're
Mm.
talking that that game Saturday might be played in the snow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're talking about temperatures about 15 to 20 in Como. And
Wow.
excuse me, uh, if that is the case, could be advantage Arkansas with their running game.
Hmm. I'm sure it would be.
So we'll see what happens. That's SEC Network on Saturday. Uh, the A&M Texas game is on ABC. That's going to be Fowler and Herb Street, Holly Rowe, and which that's also means that game day's down there.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure game day is going to be there. I hadn't
Yeah,
heard officially,
they
but I'm
they are there. Big Noon is back in Columbus because of Ohio State and Michigan, and so that's one that Ryan Day better win because he's lost two in a row to him.
mm,
He uh, he can't afford to lose three,
no, no.
and they've already put the red X's over the M's in Ohio. They will not say anything with an M in it, including Michigan. So to say that they don't like each other is a extremely rash understatement.
It's fun.
Uh, you're going to talk about BYU. They
Yeah.
their toe out in Tempe. You were worried about that game.
I've been worried about that game all year. I've said all year long that's the one that concerned me the most.
Yeah.
And that was the reason why.
Yep.
You just knew.
Who do they have to finish?
Houston, senior
Okay.
day here,
Here.
which I don't know what the weather's going to be. I was out on my walk this morning and I was walking in the snow. Got to the park up the hill from our house and a couple of kids were sledding already. So
Oh boy.
it's kind of up a little bit higher up elevation than I'm right on the bench. And so we climbed up a little bit higher. The kids were sledding up there, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it's going to be like come Saturday
No,
night.
no telling. Is that a night game?
It's going to be a night game. Yep.
Ooh, snowy, possible whiteout.
Don't
Who
know.
knows? Uh, we'll see what transpires. Uh, Like I
They
say,
better win.
bunch of rivalry games this week.
Yeah, yeah. Normally it would have been the Bedlam,
Yeah, that's true.
but
That is
instead
true.
it's going to be a Louisiana Saturday night for Oklahoma down in Baton Rouge.
Yep. It might be a little bit warmer, don't know, but I fully expect the referees to be wearing long sleeves, but not the heavy
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. It's
Uh,
going to be an interesting one. LSU's kind of dropped a little bit. It seems
well,
like in the last little bit, and
the fans down there were yelling "Fire Kelly" at the last
yeah,
home game.
yeah.
So he is okay. Let's see, Charlie McClendon, Les Miles, Coach O, now him. Uh, they don't hang around there very often. The only guy that
No,
left on his own accord was some guy by the name of Saban.
Saban, way back a long time ago.
Yeah, he went to the pros, and then their jaws dropped whenever he came off the plane with the A on it, and
Yep,
he landed in Tuscaloosa.
yep,
And they're
and
like, "Oh crap!"
yep, and the legend was finished and made right
Yeah.
there.
Well, the reason, and a friend of mine who was the longtime sports information director at Arkansas, Rick Schaefer, he touched on this when they were yelling at Les before he got let go. You know, they got rid of Charlie McClendon, the winningest coach in LSU history. They got rid of him because he couldn't beat Bear.
yeah,
They got rid of Les and Coach O because they couldn't. Neither one of them could beat Nick, and now they're hollering at Kelly because he couldn't beat DeBoer.
hmm
They thought this year would be the year that they
You
catch
think?
Alabama with their pants down, and they got rolled at home.
Yeah, they did. Uh, Alabama's just been one of those teams this year where, and we were talking about it on the air before the game started last Saturday. Which Alabama team is going to show up?
And they're beginning to look a lot like OU, banged up.
Yeah, they are.
Uh,
Well, the what was his name? Number zero, the linebacker,
mhm,
Saut Saut Saute or something like that.
yeah,
Anyway, he got hurt
yep,
early on in that Oklahoma game and never came back in.
yep. Uh, Cole Adams, who is Mike Adams' son, who used to be the AD here at Tahlequah, played
Hmm
football here at Northeastern. Uh, Cole's out for the remainder of the season. He got hurt at Missouri, and I don't know what happened. I haven't even talked to Mike about it,
Hmm.
but I know that it showed on the website that it was a season-ending injury. So he's probably not even going to be available for the bowl game. And right now they're sitting looking at the new poll by the CFP. They're sitting 13th,
Hmm.
and they've got Iron Bowl at home against
Yeah.
Auburn, and Auburn pulls off the miracle beating A&M in 4 overtime.
Oh my gosh, that was just got to watch the end of that at the conclusion uh, of OU Bama, and that one was pretty darn exciting going in. Uh, I was able to really start paying attention to that one in at the beginning of the second overtime.
Yeah, and Nick talked about it on game day when
Did
they were
he?
doing their picks. He said that Jordan Hare, not Jordan Hare, it's Jordan Hare,
Hmm
is haunted because of all the things that have happened between Alabama and Auburn. Uh, you know, the legendary kick six,
Yeah.
the catch that they made pulling out of their shorts last year.
Yeah.
How they've lost games and won games at Jordan Hare uh, is like he said, place is haunted.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It
Yeah.
totally is. I will never, I don't think anybody will ever forget that kick six.
No, and that was the late Rod Bramlich's legendary call. And 2 weeks before that was the miracle at Jordan Hare when they beat Georgia on a
Yeah.
pass on fourth down. And I think it hit the hands of a Georgia defender and fell right into the hands of an Auburn receiver at about the 15, and he runs it in for a touchdown. And then, the kick six call, you can put that uh, on YouTube and listen to Rod's call. That was uh, a legendary call. And the sad part of it is that 6 months later, him and his wife were killed in a car wreck.
Yeah. That was rough.
And he was just him and his wife minding their own business in a turn lane.
Uh-huh.
And a kid comes barreling down the street and rear ends them, and that's what happened. And the ironic thing about that is that before the season started, it was in the summertime. He had talked with Andy Burcham, who is now the broadcaster for Auburn, him and his wife, and asked if something happened to him, would they become the guardians of their two kids?
Mm.
So, was it an inkling? I don't know that,
You
but
always have to wonder about that stuff,
yeah, you
though.
do have to wonder about it. But
Why
Rod
was
was
that on his
one of the,
mind? You know?
you know, Rod was a great announcer, uh, and unfortunately had taken away from us way, way too early. And
Yeah.
it's similar to what has happened at Arkansas uh, with Bud Campbell back in the early 70s, Paul Eels back in the early 2000s. Both of them died in car wrecks. And here was the thing about that. Back then, the sports director of KATV, Channel 7 in Little Rock, was also the voice of the Razorbacks.
Mhm.
That was one of the perks. And that ended after when Paul died. I don't know if a lady crossed the center median and hit him, or something happened to him. He crossed the center median and hit her on I-40 down by Russellville. And he was coming back from a golf outing that Houston Nutt was the coach at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He had been in Fayetteville at uh, what is the name of the course? Uh, Stonebridge Meadows. Uh,
Yeah.
there he had done. He had played golf. He had cut a story, and they'd sent it back to the station from Fayetteville. And then he's driving back, and then that happened. So
Yeah, there's been some sad things. I still remember, of course, I was back when I lived in Dallas, the plane crash after the OSU basketball game.
yes, yes, and
Oh,
I knew two of them, Bill
yeah, it was
Tegan
Bill Tegan's. Yeah.
and one, and then Jared Weiberg. That's Chad
Hmm.
Weiberg's brother. Jared was a manager for Eddie Sutton, and he was on that plane. And
Yeah.
their dad, Mick Weiberg, was the basketball coach then at Northern up at Tonkawa, but knew them all because he had coached at Connors down
Hmm.
at Warner, where I went to school, where I went to high school. So yeah,
Hmm.
Well, we'll have to find out Saturday what happens. Sunday, when you know, be interesting to see what the CFP looks like Tuesday night,
Sure will.
because then
You think
we got the championship games coming up.
I've been kind of talking about that before we shut out here. Let me get your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts on what's Tuesday night's going to bring. Is the Big 12 going to land in there somewhere?
Uh, they've got to hope that Boise stubs their toe,
Mm-hmm. Kind of what
uh,
I'm thinking.
because if not, then they're going to be the higher ranked
Mm-hmm.
out of all of them. I don't see a 3-loss SEC team.
I don't either. They kept talking about is there a way Bama could get in there with 3 losses? I'm
No,
not seeing it happening.
I'm not seeing it either because of the losses that they've had,
Yeah.
especially losing by 21 to OU.
Yeah,
There's
they didn't
that
look.
one. That's what you call in basketball. That's called a bad loss.
Yeah.
Uh, Now here's something as we talk about that. That was the first time in 182 games that Bama had not scored 10 points or more.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yep.
was that was a shocker.
First time in over a decade, pre Nick Saban era,
Yeah,
they
you're
hadn't scored
going back.
that they hadn't scored a touchdown in a game either.
Yeah, but they should have scored a touchdown.
Yeah,
That
I
the
we were talking
call.
about that. That call, I have not gone back and watched the game yet. I plan on doing it this weekend.
Uh,
But when we saw it, my eyes were elsewhere on the field and I did not see that.
he was not covered. The receiver who caught the ball was not covered, and Kirk and Bill, who is their rules expert,
Hmm.
both of them went off on that line judge.
There was so much confusion. I remember the play.
Yeah.
There was tons of confusion on the Alabama line. The players were running up and down everywhere. They didn't know where they were going. Nobody knew who was going where.
Mm-hmm.
There was tons of confusion on it. And I do remember that.
Yeah.
And then I remember seeing him get past the safety, and we couldn't tell from where we were if he caught it or not. And then it was ruled a touchdown, but then we saw the flags.
Yeah. There was one flag, and it was by the line judge, and he threw
Yeah.
it late.
Yeah.
In fact, very late. And DeBoer is not a guy who gets on the officials, but he was on them like a cheap suit.
Mm.
And I can guarantee you, there was a phone call Sunday morning to the supervisor of officials of the SEC about that play. And I would venture to say that line judge got ripped, may not call this week.
Mm.
It was a blatant miss. That was one that the flag should never came out of his belt, not out of his pocket, because they now put him on their belt and
Hmm.
they grab that golf ball size um,
The
uh,
weight.
weight that comes out of the belt.
Yeah.
So I would venture to say that he might not be calling this week,
Wow.
and it'll be interesting to see if they they're in a consortium with probably other conferences. They may bring somebody else up to that crew. Don't know. Could be penalizing the whole crew from the white hat on down. You don't know. but they probably got graded down when they reviewed the film. And they go over that thing with a fine tooth comb. Uh, that's not only here in Division One, but I know they do in Division Two because I've seen that happen here in MIAA. So,
Hmm.
and the only MIAA team left in the playoffs is UCO.
Hmm.
They won over the weekend, and the other team was Pittsburgh State. They played at home, which is always a house of horrors for everybody in the MIAA. They got drove by the defending national champion, Harding Bison, 45-3.
Oh,
The
geez, that wasn't even
Gorillas,
a game.
don't even score a touchdown at home. And I mean, this super region that we're in, Northeastern's in, which is Northern Sun, MIAA, and the Great American. It is water moccasin. I mean, you win this region, this super region, uh, you are probably going to play for a national title at McKinney. And if it's Harding again, I can guarantee you everybody in Searcy will be down there. Because I don't see UCO beating who they're going to play this week. If they do, they got to run into Harding. And that game, I think, may wind up being in Edmond because I think they're the higher seed.
Hmm.
So, but anyway, it'll be interesting seeing 3 weeks who's going to be playing for the D2 title.
Definitely coming down,
Yep,
down
sure
to
is.
the end already.
Yep,
Football season.
ready for some basketball. I get back in the saddle after having to give 2 games up last week because I had a pretty bad case of bronchitis. Turned back 2 games at Arkansas. I go to Tulsa Sunday for a women's game against Creighton on ESPN at 1 o'clock. Then go to Fayetteville Thursday night for the SEC ACC Challenge. Arkansas's got Boston College at 6 o'clock. So be interesting to see what happens. Arkansas got driven by ORU, and we're going to be interested to see if they can bounce back. They're right at 500 right now, but they're picked last in the SEC. They lost
Really?
everybody who started last year. Everybody either one graduated and 4 went in the portal.
Wow. Wow.
So I think there's only 3 girls uh, that were still on the roster when I started making my rosters out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and one of the girls lives in Farmington, and
Mm-hmm.
she's starting this year. So, well, that's going to be about to do it for this week's Thanksgiving edition of the Cover 4 podcast. We'll talk a little bit about the upcoming championship games in the Big Four conferences, and then we'll touch a little bit about basketball because everybody will be starting next week. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll kind of project where some of the teams might go bowl wise.
Yeah, I was going to say it's might be able to do bowling, a little bit of bowling guesses, see what
Yep,
happens.
OU, Arkansas, and everybody
Yeah.
else. So that's going to do it for this week's edition. And for my partner, Randy Gibson, out in Provo, Utah, I'm Jim Trickett. Thanks a lot for watching the Cover 4 podcast. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you next week.